While the level of corruption within the British police is occasionally reported in the mainstream media, the true depth of misconduct and corruption is largely ignored. So in this report we're going to examine some of the most recent cases that highlight the crimes and corruption by those who are entrusted to protect us, and how for decades British police have repeatedly failed to protect the victims of Jimmy Savile. There is now overwhelming evidence that demonstrates how the police abuse their position of authority by either committing or completely ignoring crimes. Just this week, new figures reveal that almost half of all UK officers would not report fellow officers for violent behaviour towards suspects. A new study into police ethics by the Open University found that up to 46% of officers would potentially turn a blind eye to their colleagues punching and beating suspects. Only 54% of police officers claim they would definitely report violent behaviour. The study, which polled 520 officers across 3 forces in the UK, found that almost 1 in 5 would definitely not report a colleague who ran a private security business. 17% would definitely not report officers who accepted unsolicited gifts while on duty. 1 in 4 would definitely not report officers who accepted food and alcohol on occasions. Officers were presented with 11 possible scenarios and asked what action they would take in each. Author of the study, Dr. Louise Westmoreland, senior lecturer in criminology at the Open University, said the findings show that there is a blue wall of silence within the police. She also said, the findings of the study reveal that officers seem uncertain of the rules and regulations covering their behaviour, especially at the lower end of the spectrum. In other words, officers were not clear about the bending of rules covering minor offences, such as working in their spare time or accepting free drinks and small gifts. Public trust in the police is continuing to decline and has been damaged in no small part due to the level of corruption uncovered by the Leveson inquiry, the Hillsborough cover-up, and the failure to protect abuse victims from paedophile Jimmy Savile. In fact, just this week it emerged that Jimmy Savile had boasted about his police contacts who would help him to destroy sexual abuse claims made against him. It appears that Savile had created an inner circle of police officers who met at his penthouse apartment in Leeds on a weekly basis. A report by Detective Superintendent John Savile claimed that while being interviewed under caution by Surrey Police, Jimmy Savile had said that he had contacts within the police, and whenever he received letters alleging that he had done something wrong, he gave them to his police contacts to get rid of. Apparently dubbed the Friday Morning Club, which met for almost 20 years, it had up to 9 former or serving police officers as members. The report claims that Savile also stated that officers read and destroyed the letters. If one of the letters concerned him, then he could have it forensically examined as a favour if he needed. One victim has spoken out about the lack of police action and said, "I want this to be investigated as I feel there must have been a cover-up. I find it extraordinary that he was telling police that another force was aware of more allegations against him and it wasn't followed up. I can't imagine nobody knew what he was doing." She added, "It's one thing to strip him of his knighthood, but it's not good enough when he could have been brought to justice when alive." No officers from either Surrey or West Yorkshire Police have been disciplined, and there might be some truth in what Savile had to say, as West Yorkshire Police do not have any claims of his abuse in their system. In 2007, 2 complaints were made to Surrey Police alleging that Savile had sexually abused 2 girls and sexually assaulted another, but police only investigated 1 allegation of sexual assault. But it's not just Surrey and West Yorkshire Police who turned a blind eye to years of Savile's abuse. It also appears that he had protection from North Yorkshire Police. Jimmy Savile had spent a lot of his life in Scarborough and was alleged to be part of a paedophile ring in the area that included the Mayor of Scarborough, Peter Giaconelli. North Yorkshire Police claim the first they heard about Savile committing abuse was in 2012 when 2 women came forward. However, this is not true. In 2003, the police force conducted a major investigation into a paedophile ring operating in the area, and according to press reports, Savile's name was constantly mentioned, but they completely ignored this line of inquiry. In fact, Savile was never even questioned by North Yorkshire Police, despite several allegations being made against him. Even in his own 1974 autobiography, Savile claimed that he received 6 girls as payment from a Yorkshire council for appearing as a special guest at a council function. While the decades of abuse has been widely reported in the mainstream media, little has been mentioned about the police's response during that time. In 2008, a complaint was made to Sussex Police that Savile had sexually assaulted a woman in her early 20s in the back of a caravan. In the 1980s, he assaulted a girl in his caravan at the BBC Centre. Again, the police were informed, but it led to nothing. Likewise with victim John Gibbon, who reported sexual assault to the London Met in the 80s, and the police didn't even bother to call him back. There could be potentially hundreds of cases where the police ignored complaints made about Savile and his accomplices. We have to wonder why a paedophile and his friends were allowed to continue a monstrous reign of abuse, and even more disturbingly, we have to ask ourselves, who else has been allowed to commit horrendous acts like this with impunity, and why? Putting the Jimmy Savile case to one side for a moment, there is a cesspool of misconduct and corruption within the police, and the mainstream media often fails to report it. And when police officers are found guilty of a crime, their punishment is often lenient. For example, this week, a Met police officer, Christopher Exley, was dismissed after admitting to 4 counts of making indecent images of children following a proactive investigation by the force's paedophile unit. And another Met officer, PC Stephen Holt, was just sacked for committing housing benefit fraud and sentenced to only 200 hours of community service. Hampshire police officer Rob Swift Simmons received a 2-year suspended sentence and was ordered to pay £300 in prosecution costs and a £100 victim surcharge after a gun was found in his home. Now, one incident that did receive widespread media attention was PC Simon Harwood, the officer who killed protester Ian Tomlinson. And he was not convicted of a crime, he was merely sacked, and he was even allowed to keep his pension entitlement. And sometimes officers who commit crimes receive no punishment at all. Many of you will remember the case of Carissa Dick, the officer with connections to Common Purpose, who gave the order for police to execute Jean-Charles de Menezes on the London Underground. She actually received a promotion. These are just recent examples of police misconduct and corruption, and it could be argued that these are isolated incidents, but if we step back and look at the bigger picture, we can clearly see there is a culture of corruption within the British police. Figures obtained by the Liberal Democrats last year showed that over 1,000 police officers have criminal convictions, and many of them for violent crimes. In addition, a Freedom of Information Act request filed by myself showed that 263 Met officers were disciplined for misconduct between 2011 and 2012 for offences that include assault, harassment, unlawful arrest and even rape. Also in December 2012, the Daily Mail reported a 62% rise in police corruption investigations, with anti-corruption units facing 245 new cases every month. Now, I'm not suggesting that all police officers are corrupt, far from it. In fact, it's true that many police officers are indeed the thin blue line that protect the public from criminals, and they often perform a largely hostile and thankless job. However, the amount of officers who abuse their position of authority cannot be denied, and much like the rest of the establishment, some elements within the police force are only concerned with protecting its own. Well, that's all from me for today. For more news that you're not supposed to know, visit rinf.com. I'm Mick Meaney, signing off for RINF News.